Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 11. It's hard to believe we've actually made it this far, but episode number 11 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are once again coming to you from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services and looking forward to having some great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another great organization this week and have Kay Peninger with us, who is the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Gaston County. Kay, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Great, thanks. It's good to be here with you.
So we are going to get right to it. So if you don't mind, Kay, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a native North Carolinian. I was born in Greensboro, grew up in Fayetteville, met my husband at East Carolina, and after that, it's just been a great adventure of moving around the country with him, following his career. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. Family is very important to me. Okay, well, very good. So
nice to hear another North Carolinian, even if you are associated with ECU. We'll let that go for now. NC State and ECU are.
We have a great history together.
Yes, we do. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
A lot of it involving goalpost.
It might, yes. Luckily, that was just before I was in Raleigh, so.
So you weren't involved in that?
No, I wasn't. I think my brother actually witnessed that at that event. So anyway.
I wasn't there either.
Moving on. So how did you end up here in Gastonia and then end up here at the Habitat for Humanity of Gaston County?
Well, so as I mentioned, I've been a trailing spouse. This is a term that one of my former board members used to describe herself, and I was like, yeah, that's me. So shortly after we got married, we ended up moving to Chicago with Marty's job, and then he took another job, so we ended up moving to Atlanta, and then he transferred to Richmond. So I've kind of been following him around, and like instead of having this career path, and so then he had an opportunity to move to take over the North Carolina, South Carolina territory for the company that he was working for. He is from Gastonia. And wanted to be back here to be closer to his mother. And so we ended up moving to Gastonia, but I've been in and out of it for the past 38 years or so.
Okay. So how did you end up at Habitat?
So I've had a varied career. So I started off working in marketing research as an analyst, took a job in marketing communications when we were living in Atlanta. And then when I moved to Richmond, I took a job as the executive director of a foundation for a national historic landmark. It was where Patrick Henry gave his Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech.
Oh, wow.
It was a really cool job. Yeah, it was very interesting. But then when he had the opportunity to move to Charlotte, I went to work for the Charlotte Museum of History, and then I followed Tony Zeiss up to D.C. to be part of the team that opened up Museum of the Bible. So when that sort of ran its course and, living two different households, there's a reasons why it doesn't work really well. Right. I started thinking about, what do I really want to do? Because I've spent a lot of time in museums, which I love, and history, which I love. But I really wanted to do something that made more of a direct impact on somebody's life. Okay. So I was thinking, I could, food, shelter, either of those would be a great opportunity. And it turned out that the job at Habitat was open. So
how many years has that been
now? March was 2 years.
Okay.
So,
I knew it hadn't been a real long time, but that's great. We're very lucky to have you here at Habitat. What can you tell the listeners about kind of what's the mission, and maybe could you share some of the history of Habitat Gaston County, if you know that, and maybe even the history of Habitat overall, because I know that's a much bigger, broader organization than just Gaston County, but kind of what's the mission in general of Habitat?
Habitat works to put families in homes. Home, when you think about it, having a home is central to our life. It's where we go to sleep at night, where we feel safe, where it can be a retreat to get away from the stresses of the world. It's where our family gathers together. It's where we have Thanksgiving, Christmas. It really is central to everything that we do. And for people who have who have low wages, or they have poor credit, or they have a lot of consumer debt, the traditional path to home ownership is really not available to them. So Habitat works to help people who need a home, help them build their home and then purchase it with an affordable mortgage. And Habitat International started, I think, in the 1940s or so.
That may be right, yep.
In Georgia, and with the mission of, they saw folks who were living in substandard homes. Maybe there wasn't indoor plumbing, there wasn't a kitchen, and they really wanted to lift up their neighbors and work together with them. So it was never meant to be a handout or a free home, but sort of a partnership where we give you that hand up and help you get on your feet, and then you're able to run and fly from there. If
I remember correctly, when I was doing a little bit of research, it seems like locally, was it around 1988 or 89, I think, that Habitat in Gaston County started? Does that sound right?
Yeah, it was in December 20th, 1988.
Okay.
Because we're having our Christmas party that day. Holiday party.
Okay, very good.
But then in early 1989, they became an affiliate.
Okay, very good. Yeah, full disclosure, I mean, I've been involved on and off with Habitat between doing work on the houses, being involved with organizations that have built houses, between, Rotary, my church, and I have seen firsthand, there's nothing, I mean, I've been lucky to see a lot of great things around Gaston County, around the country, but when you see that, I guess, that handoff to the homeowner, mm-hmm. I guess the key presentation, maybe, I'm not sure I'm describing that right, but I've been to a couple of those where, I guess the homeowner.
The home dedication,
and it's quite an event, and it is it's just a feel good moment, right? And you can see something that's actually, to your point earlier about doing something that actually makes an impact. I mean, you can see what an impact that does make, and even in also some areas where Habitat houses are, you can see kind of how that has elevated neighborhoods and areas, mm-hmm. and so it's great to see.
It is, and that's why a lot of our, because it's not it's a program that requires work, mm-hmm. and dedication, because people are usually raising a family, working a full-time job, and then they have to accomplish their program requirements, that they make that commitment to us that they're going to do that. So, they're doing this for their family, because they've probably spent some time living out of a car with their parents, and they're like, we just moved around constantly, and I want that stability of a home that's mine, that somebody can't take from me, they can't evict me from it, and so that their kids can grow up in a neighborhood and make lifelong friends.
Am I correct saying there is some sweat equity that's required of the homeowner, correct?
Yes.
With the build, or?
Well, there's 325 hours of sweat equity,
okay.
which is, it's like 14 hours a month. So it's almost like
that's significant.
A part-time job in addition to all the other stuff that you're doing. So it does require people who are willing to make that investment in themselves for a limited period of time, and in return, the payoff is they build their house and purchase it with an affordable mortgage.
Is one of the questions that I typically ask is talking about initiatives with an organization. I mean, Habitat obviously has this one gigantic initiative that you described as the mission. Are there any other initiatives or anything else related to that Habitat might be involved with or might do? Yes.
So since I've started Habitat, we are really we have added to our housing solutions home repairs, because in addition to helping families get into a new home, there's still a lot of low-wealth families that are currently homeowners, but they can't afford to make that annual maintenance to their house. And then over time, that builds up, and their roof may be leaking, and that lets water into the house, and it affects the drywall. Their HVAC system may be going out, because we know that has a limited lifespan. Their floors may be creaky and saggy and could give way. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help them remain homeowners.
Yeah, it would be nice if even on houses that you guys build, it takes maintenance, right?
It does.
Yeah,
it does. And you mentioned all these houses that we built, like on Pryor Street or Parkland, and so that's one of the things we want to do is put those houses together to lift up those neighborhoods. So Habitat also has a neighborhood revitalization program, and that's exactly what we want to do is go into those neighborhoods and develop relationships with the people who live there and let them tell us what they would like to see happen in their neighborhood. And one of the things that we would like to contribute is to help our homeowners make repairs to their houses, help other homeowners make repairs to their houses too, so that they're still living in a healthy environment.
So yeah, that can spread. And yeah, I mean, my experience is something good starts happening in an area, then that can lead to the next thing and the next thing, right, and the next thing.
Yeah, hopefully it becomes a snowball.
Right, absolutely. That's a much better way to describe it. In your time, I know you mentioned it's just been a couple of years at this point, but I've seen a lot of things going on in the last couple of years. Can you think of one thing, and maybe it doesn't have to be just one thing, maybe what you're most proud of accomplishing in your time at Habitat?
Yeah, so when I first started there, the board really communicated very well that they would like to serve more families, because Habitat has been in business for 30 plus years, and have built a great foundation and track record of building 3 to 4 homes a year, and they've been doing that very steadily. They have really done a great job of engaging the community. You mentioned that you've been involved in builds through various organizations, and so the faith community is a great partner to us, the businesses and corporations around here, and bringing them together to help on these builds. But they really wanted to serve more families because they could see that the need was really overwhelming for people who needed housing. So we've really put a plan in place to serve more folks by developing our Dixon Village neighborhood, where we're going to be building 28 homes. 8 of those will be Habitat homes, and the rest will be workforce housing, which is people like 30 to 80% of the area median income. Those are people like teachers, firemen, policemen that actually will we want them to be able to live and work and play in Gaston County. And then that, as well as our neighborhood revitalization plans, our home repair, that's going to help us serve more families as well. So I'm really excited to see that we are in a position to start accomplishing that.
Did I see that neighborhood is going to be in Belmont? Is that?
Yeah, it's in North Belmont.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, there's been some good information and press lately about that. So well done on that.
Oh, thank you.
What is is there a time frame or a schedule for that to get started, or has it already started, or?
Well, so, we've went through the zoning process starting, last fall, and on February 1st, we got the final unanimous approval from the Belmont City Council, which was very exciting. So now we're in the phase where our construction documents are being approved, and we've had several rounds of back and forth and comments with them, and we really expect that to be completed sometime in July, and then after that, we'll break ground.
That's great. So, being in the construction world, on some level, we understand how that process, what is required for that process.
Yeah, and we're really hoping that construction prices for materials will drop drastically soon. You know
what? Just yesterday, actually, I read a report about lumber coming down and dramatically. Because demand has dropped dramatically just because of the prices increase, so we are seeing hopefully some pressure going the other way.
Yeah.
Because what we've seen recently, and it's not just lumber. It's everything related to building, and again, not just building. There's so many things right now where that price pressure. Of course, by the time this is released, hopefully that will all be settled out, and you'll be moving ahead, because it'll probably be it's going to be several weeks before this episode is released.
Well, we also have a great project team that's working on Dixon Village that's really adding some strength to that. We're partnering with a professional builder named Tom Raz with Thomas Construction and Renovation, and that is really bringing the expertise at building on that scale that is invaluable. We're also working with Kathy Young, who's in our Rotary group.
Kathy's terrific.
She is. She's a ball of fire. And
she's actually going to be on an upcoming episode with Rodney Freeman about Bountiful Blessings. So
yeah, that's a great organization.
She's involved with a lot of things. Yes.
Yeah. So we're feeling really good about it.
What this is not a question that I have asked, but how has the last year and a half of I try not to say the C word, COVID, on any of these podcasts because we're trying to move on from that, right? But how has that affected what you guys have been able to do, and how's that affected Habitat?
Well, we've kind of kept going.
Okay.
Habitat International asked affiliates to close their restores and stop using volunteers. So we shut down probably the 3rd or 4th week of March and opened up again in mid-May. And we've been open ever since. We have a great team over there. Of course, we put a lot of restrictions in place, like we asked people to wear a mask. and that really brought out a lot of interesting reactions.
Oh, I'm sure.
And but we've been very fortunate that we didn't have an outbreak or anything in the store. The office staff, we all kept going in and working. We just really, we did shut the door to our office so that we didn't have a lot of traffic coming in and out. But we've really been going at it.
Okay, well,
steadily.
Good. Well, that's great to hear. We've already. This question is there may not be anything to add, but we've already covered a lot of this and a lot of good reasons. But why would you say, maybe in your own word, why would you say Gaston County is a better place because Habitat is here?
Well, one of the largest line item, or I would say probably one of the largest sections of the Gaston County budget is the Department of Health and Human Services. Mm-hmm. And so poverty in the county can lead to a lot of need for services and other support. So when people get into a home, it really helps alleviate their need for services. So I think it's almost like a pay me now or pay me later kind of thing. So as we help people get into houses, it strengthens their families, and families are the building blocks of the community, or one of them, and it just helps make Gaston County a stronger place overall. Yeah,
the stability really makes a bit difference, doesn't it? And allows just so many other good things to happen.
Right. So it affects your health. The stress of not having a home or not knowing if you're going to have the money to pay the rent. Are you going? Do I have to? Can I pay this? Buy these books and supplies for my kids for school, or can I pay to go to the doctor or buy the medicine? There's a lot of hard choices that go into living on a negative budget or having to pay too much money of your income for rent. And also what Habitat does is help break that cycle of generational poverty and help these families with economic mobility, because they're building that financial asset that then they have that they can use, pass down to their grandchildren. They may have this house where they always have a place to live. They can tap into the equity to pay for college or their retirement. I mean, it really does. That's the two big things, is helping them get into a stable, healthy home without the mold or pest infestation or things like that, and then they have that asset that they can then move up in economic mobility.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think too many times we probably just think it's just a roof over somebody's head, but there's so many other things that occur or that or allow a family to have better progress. And again, it's just the snowball, right? Is how you described it earlier.
And one of the interesting and innovative things that we're doing in Dixon Village is we're building it as a mixed-income neighborhood. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Raj Chetty study that came out about 6 years ago.
I am not personally, no.
Well, it ranked Charlotte as 50 out of 50 in economic mobility, meaning that if you're born poor, you're going to stay poor. You really have, very limited opportunity to better yourself in life.
Sure.
So a mixed income neighborhood does help increase your economic mobilities, because you're in a diverse neighborhood. You have people of different cultural backgrounds, different employment backgrounds. So if you're living next to someone if you're a Habitat family and you're living next to someone who works in the mayor's office for the city of Belmont, and they say, we've got these great summer intern programs. Have you heard about it? No, we haven't heard about it. Well, let me get you an application. I'll write you a reference letter. There's something, opportunities that they may not encounter in a neighborhood that is more homogenous.
Yeah, just interacting with other individuals that you may not otherwise have the opportunity to.
Right, and doing that helps widen your perspective. It's kind of like travel, and you see different things, so it helps everybody.
Yes, I've learned getting involved in all the organizations I'm involved with, whether it's Rotary, a little bit of involvement with Habitat, United Way. There are ways to get exposed to that, but typically, the normal consumer or homeowner doesn't probably get to see that,
or doesn't even realize the opportunities like that come their way or their kids' ways that may not be available to other families.
So, looking ahead here locally, what do you envision Habitat looking like 5 to 10 years down the road?
Well, we all know there's a lot of change coming to Gaston County, and we intend to take this concept of mixed income living throughout many different places in Gaston County. We also want to build in more high density so that we take better use of the property that we have, because pretty soon property will become scarce in Gaston County. So we might start building townhouses or condos and things like that, because single family housing is great for people with young kids that need a backyard and a place like that, but there may be some older adults that don't want that maintenance that's required, that they may want to live in a condo where somebody else is taking care of that, and we can build more places. Or even just a young family starting out, that it's just the two of them.
Again, I just thought of this, and I remember seeing it on the website, but the number since its inception in 1989, how many houses has Habitat built?
We're on, I think, 125.
Okay.
We're building 4 right now.
Okay. That's terrific.
So we have this big, hairy, audacious goal of building probably another 100 in the next 5 years.
Okay.
So
that's a pretty good BHAG.
Yeah.
So for you personally, if you weren't involved with Habitat, what do you think you might be doing?
Well, one of the things that being in the travel and tourism industry, we've done a lot of work with travel writers where we'll invite them in, take them out to dinner, take them to see all these fabulous places, and just, it's at no expense to them. And I thought, man, that would be a great job. Just, going around writing about different historic sites or cool places to go and visit and stay and then be treated, like royalty by them, so that you'll write a great article about them. So that would be a nice job.
Yeah, that would be. That sounds terrific.
They're always glad to see you.
We're gonna obviously finish up here with a lot of some more Habitat information. But is there anything that I haven't asked? Anything you'd like to share that another question or something I should have asked that I haven't yet?
Well, one thing that I always like to reiterate is that, Habitat, we love to work in collaboration with our community, because this isn't something that we can do alone or do in isolation, whether it's, working with another nonprofit like Bountiful Blessings to help serve the families that we serve, or to work with the businesses, faith community, because it does take a village to build a Habitat house.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not something that you just some cliches. It seems like, I'm tired of hearing that one, but that's a very accurate and for so many things. Okay, what advice would you give someone wanting to get involved with an organization like Habitat, either volunteer standpoint or a career standpoint, or can you share?
Well, we love volunteers. It's whether you're a volunteer or an employee, it is very fulfilling. It's great to get up every morning and focus on helping other people instead of thinking about yourself. That's one of the things that I love about it. Right. It really takes me out of myself, and it is very rewarding to, as you said, to see those families get the keys to their home. So I think any kind of career that you have where you feel like you're giving back to your community is rewarding.
So again, like I said, we're going to come back to finish off with some Habitat questions, but the real reason we have you here is these Gaston County questions. I mean, this is a podcast about great things happening in Gaston County. So we're going to run through these, what we call our Gaston County speed round of questions. And this is really the things that people want to know about Kay Peninger. Okay. So first question is, what is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
I love strawberry.
Strawberry. Yep. Very good. So are you a milkshake person or just a cup of ice cream or?
Just straight ice cream.
Okay.
Straight up.
Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Cheerwine. I've always loved Cheerwine. In fact, my youngest son, when we were living in Virginia, when we would come back here to visit, we'd always take a case of a 12-pack of Cheerwine back with us. Or his grandparents would bring him Cheerwine, and he actually was taking them to his school and middle school and selling them at lunch.
I remember distinctly when I was in college in Raleigh, didn't have Sundrop, couldn't get Sundrop anywhere. Yeah, I would always be taking some Sundrop back to Raleigh with me anytime I was at home. So what is do you prefer Eastern or Western North Carolina style barbecue?
Eastern, vinegar all the way.
Yeah, that's kind of been, I would say that's probably been the winner so far with that question. How about your favorite Shield Museum exhibit?
I like the outdoor area a lot.
Like the farm area and nature trail, yeah.
In the 18th century lifestyle, and
yes,
like that.
All right. Again, I typically often modify this question, and this is a hard one, but I'll do it for today. UNC Duke, NC State, or East Carolina?
Pirate all the way.
Bless you. What is something very few people know about you?
Let's see. I worked in the rat lab at East Carolina.
Oh, really?
I was a psychology major, and one of the things I did was take the little rats and put them through the mazes and track them and make the notes. And
behavior and interesting. Yeah, that's not something I would want to do, but good.
Well,
good
you couldn't pay me to do it now.
I got you.
But I also was the producer of an education program that was broadcast nationally on PBS.
Oh, wow. What was that called?
Liberty or Death.
Oh.
It's about the events leading up to the American Revolution in Virginia and Patrick Henry's speech.
Oh, wow. Is that something you can find somewhere or YouTube or anything like that? Or that's interesting. I might have to check that out.
Yeah. So are you a history buff?
Yes.
I've got a copy, so I'll bring it to you at Rotary
that's fantastic.
And give it to you.
It's
pretty interesting.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah. I love that stuff. Recent book that you've read that you would recommend?
I read Midnight in Chernobyl, which is a great, it was written by a New York Times author, but it's a great story about the nuclear disaster and everything that happened with that. It was really very interesting. Yeah,
I recently watched the little miniseries, I think it was on HBO, called Chernobyl.
Yes.
I thought it was really good. I thought you think you know a little bit about this kind of things, and then of course, on television shows, I guess you got to be careful. Is it really, how factual is it in his, but so I'll make a note of that one.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about history is, in school you only learn like a timeline of history, but
right.
The deeper you go into it, the more interesting it is.
Yes, very much so. So we're going to finish up with a few more questions. So kind of maybe similar to a question earlier about habitat, but besides Habitat for Humanity, why would you say that Gaston County is such a great place?
It still has, it's kind of that in between a big city lifestyle and, living out in the middle of nowhere. So it's still accessible. It's got some great hometown advantages. And although I do love big cities, it's got the outdoor with the river and the mountain, and I'd say the main thing is there's a lot of really good people that live here. Yeah,
that's a common theme, and I agree with you. The people are great, but you also have quick access to the mountains and the beach, and it is a unique county with the lakes and the rivers and Crowder's Mountain. We do have some uniqueness to our county. This is probably my favorite question. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I would say not to realize that this too shall pass. There's a lot of times you get hung up or on something and not realize that, in 2 or 3 years, it may be something that you look back and laugh about instead of crying about at the time, but it will pass and things will change. Yeah,
actually, I've learned that good and bad, right? Good things this too shall pass, as well as the things that you think are a big deal. Yeah, when I was 20, so many things were a much bigger deal in my mind than they really were, or it seemed at the time.
Exactly.
There's just I had zero perspective when I was 20 on anything.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
Yeah. So again, I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, we're going to finish up here. Is there, again, just real quick, is there anything else you'd like to share, just from a personal perspective, or about Habitat, or anything you'd like to finish up with?
I would just like to say, we have a lot of great nonprofits in Gaston County that are doing a lot of really good work, so kudos to them and keep it up.
All right, great. So, Kay, this has really been good. I appreciate your time. So where can listeners go to learn more about the organization or get involved or contact you directly? How would they go about doing that?
We have our website is habitatgaston.org. So you can visit there. You can stop by our restore or stop by our office, and we'll be happy to talk with you. Okay, we'll be sure to put that information in the show notes. So again, this has been really good, Kay. I appreciate your time today, and we're going to finish up with a couple of quick things. Several
episodes ago, we started my own book recommendation for this week. Again, just remember Kay's recommendation was Midnight in Chernobyl. I'm definitely going to, I'll check that one out myself. But this week, recommend a book by Dan Heath. Actually, I think he lives in the Raleigh area. But it's called Upstream, and it's a book about solving root problems of issues, not just reacting after the fact. And I think that's a good one for me related to Habitat. Habitat is kind of doing that type of work where they're really getting to some of the root issues and solving those as instead of just putting a Band-Aid on something that's a longer-term problem that Habitat is solving. And my quote or thought for the week is from Rudyard Kipling. It's one of my favorites on teamwork and community, and I will have to admit, and this is when this is released, it's going to be several weeks after the recent College World Series events, but I won't get into great detail. But this might have affected my quote for this week that I picked. But again, on teamwork and community from Rudyard Kipling, who said, "For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack." So it requires a good community but along with individuals making things happen to really get things done and make an impact and exactly the type of thing that organizations like Habitat do. So to your listeners out there, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about this podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, and please follow us on all our social media platforms. You can also find us and subscribe on most podcast services such as iTunes, Spotify, and Google. Thanks again to Kay Peninger from Habitat for Humanity for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson and Elizabeth King from GSM Services and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.